In this video, we're going to show you how you can use a character controller to be able to push object around your scene, just like as you see right here. All right, let's get it. What is up, YouTube? It's Leighton coming at you again with the online code coach, and in this video I got my buddy here, Jacob. What's up, Jacob?
Good. And you, Leighton?
I'm doing all right. So we're here to fix yet another problem that many folks might be having in here in Unity. Whenever you're using a player with a character controller, you find it kind of difficult when it comes to pushing objects around in your scene that has rigid body, and you should be able to push them around. So I'll demonstrate here real quick. This player here that we're using has a character controller, and you can see it doesn't always work. Sometimes it moves. See, I'm just trying to push this, and this doesn't always work. But you can see here the consistency. If I was to use a character controller here, or a different character here that does not use a character controller, let me see, camera, and this, there we go. So with this one now, we can easily just push the object. It's a little bit more consistent, see? Let's go ahead and address the problem. You can see here with the character controller, you sometimes will get it to maybe work a little bit. You see, I'm trying to just push these boxes, and it's really buggy. It's not really set up to work, even though all those boxes have rigid body on them. You can see the player themselves using the character controller only has a character controller and a script, so it doesn't really have like a collider. And even if you do add maybe a box collider to this, the way it's moving still doesn't really allow it to work consistently. You can see I'm trying to push this here. Still, like, it will go every now and then, but that doesn't work. So if you have a regular character or humanoid, obviously you won't be adding a box collider, so I'm not going to do that either. But that was just an example. All right, enough with the explanation of what's wrong. Let's get on with fixing it. I'm gonna show you a quick little script that you can drop on every object you want. Any object you want to be able to add a movability to interact with the character controller. You can do that, and then it will be able to, you'll be able to push it and move it around. Let's go ahead and create a new script. What shall we call it, Jacob?
Maybe movable objects.
Movable object, I like it. Movable object it is. Give Unity a little time here to do its little boink 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 think in there. All right, and we're in the script. Let me move my face out the way. Move the script over to the left a little bit. Easier for everyone to read. All right. First thing we're going to create is a float. We're going to create a float. Let's make it public. And this float will be basically the magnitude, the force of the response to the push. So that's actually not a bad name. I'll call it push force. Right. I'll also just set it to 1 by default. So just put a 1 there. That means that in Unity it will just show up as a 1, but you can change it anytime you want. We won't need the update function. We won't need the start function either. So you can go ahead and clear those. Just like the on trigger enter and the on trigger exit, or the on collision enter, on collision exit, there is a detection for when the character controller hits something, and that one is actually called on controller collider hit. So you can go ahead and auto generate that function if you have Visual Studio and you have things set up properly. You can use that. Is that your brother in the background?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Daniel.
What's up, Daniel? What's up, Daniel? All right, awesome. So there is this on controller collider hit that will detect when an object is interacting with an object with a controller on it, or a character controller in this sense. So you can detect when the character controller actually hits something. We're gonna use this to be able to push some stuff around, but of course you can also use this for some other times in your game when maybe trigger isn't working. The on controller collider hit should work. All right, so hit is gonna represent the object that it just hit. So we're gonna try to detect if that object has a rigid body. So we're gonna create ourselves a reference to the rigid body. So let's create our type here, rigid body. And I'm just gonna call mine underscore rig. Yeah, underscore rig. I'll just do two E's. And then we're gonna say that is equal to whatever we hit dot, you can say rigid body here, but that's not the one you're looking for. You wanna first get into the collider and then do attached rigid body, do this one, all right? Just do a semicolon at the end and you're set. So now you've accurately grabbed or snatched the rigid body from whatever we just hit, if it has one. So we want to make sure we do that check though. We want to check to make sure that the rigid body is not equal new, which means there actually is a rigid body for us to do what we're about to do. Once there is a rigid body, we can then start calculate some force. So let's go ahead and determine where the push is coming from, so we can make it move in the opposite direction. So we create our vector 3, and this will be our let's just say it's our force direction. So we'll say direction, and that is going to be equal to the hit dot game object. So the game object that we're hitting, we're going to go into the transform of that game object and find the position. All right, so we got that position. Now we want to minus it from our current position, the current position of the object that the script is on. That will give us our force direction, right? So this is the object we're pushing. This is the little guy pushing it. I don't know why his hands is coming out of his head there. Let's say he's pushing it. So we need his position, right? And then the object's position. So we're taking his position first, boom, and minusing the position of this so we can get basically the direction, boom, of where the push, the force should be coming from. Okay, cool beans. Let us continue. Next, we want to make sure that our force position doesn't include the up and down, right? We just want X and Z. We don't want Y. So we go into the Y and we will just confirm that that is 0. Just go ahead and hard code it to 0. So we go into this 3 vector, X, Y, and Z, and personally go ahead and target the Y and set it to 0. So it remains 0, it doesn't change. After that, we just want to normalize this. So we say force direction dot normalize, and that requires a little bit of a open and close parentheses and then the semicolon at the end. Oh, what I do wrong here? I think there's a capital N. No? Normalize without the D. There we go. That's the word. Once that is set, we are good to go. All we need to do now is use this rigid body and add force in the correct direction, which we have right there. We've acquired all the direction. Everything is ready to go. So now it's time to add force. So let's hop into the rigid body that we just created, that we just made reference to. Ridge. And then we're going to say add force at position. That's a different one. You can see here, it applies force at a position. As a result of this, will apply torque and force on an object. So this is perfect. In case you guys haven't noticed, there is a lot of stuff, a lot of different forces you can use here. There's explosion force, there's add torque, there's a lot of different ways to apply friction and movement to an object. So we're gonna go ahead and use this add force at position. It requires an open and closed parentheses, and in here you can see, first thing we need is a force, vector 3 direction for force, and a vector 3 for the position. All right, we already know the force amount will be this, and then it's a vector 3 force, so we need this along with it, so to tell it which direction that force is coming from. So we say first force direction and simply times it by the push force. So now we have a force direction, a vector 3 with a force. So that is the first thing it requires. You can see the little pop up here. First thing it requires. Second thing now is the position, which we also have. So we'll put a comma, space, and then the position, guys, is simply from the position of the object. Again, this object that the script is on. We're not done. We can add a little bit more. There's a little override we can do here, but we can close up the script and call it a day. However, I find that for the best result, you can still do an override. So in case you guys have never noticed, there's a, not override, but an overload. Usually the IntelliSense will sometimes show you right here where it says one overload, which means you can do a little bit more than what is normal. So if you just put a comma, usually you'll be able to see what the next thing is, and it's a force mode. Just like when you add force or add explosion force, they all have this ability here where you can tell it how the force is being added. There's like constant force, there is impulse and stuff like that. And speaking of impulse, that's actually exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to say force mode, and then we're just going to say dot impulse. So it's a little bit faster. All right. So I know that was kind of long and drawn out, but I want to make sure that everyone understands what we're doing. And that's the code. We just detect the collision with the character controller. Try to snatch the rigid body off the object we're hitting. Make a reference, I should say, but not like actually snatch. And then check and make sure it's there. Calculate which direction the push should be coming from. And then we go ahead and add it. All right, so now that we're done with the script, let's go ahead and just hit save. And now you'll be able to just drop this on the... Oh, I did say the object that you want to push. That's my fault. That's my fault. You're actually going to put it on the player himself with his character controller. Right? And boom, just like so. Because, I mean, it just makes sense. If the hit is the other object that has the rigid body, then obviously the other object wouldn't be the player with the character controller, because the player does not have a rigid body. So everything else that has a rigid body should be good to go. You can go ahead and you see the force there is set to 1. Usually that works fine for me. We put it on our object and our character. Now when we hit play, everything that has a rigid body, we should be able to just push them around nice and easily, just like that. You can see it works nice and accurately. If you want to be super strong, you can go ahead and crank this up. Let's try 5. And you see you get a lot more push power. That was crazy. Look at that. So yeah, using character controller, guys, that's how you're able to push things around in your scene. Feel free to copy the script, use the script for yourself. I'll leave a link in the description where you can go ahead and just copy it over. If you liked the video, if it was helpful, go ahead and drop a like and say hi to Jacob. Of course, you got to say hi to Jacob. All right, and that's it. We are out.
And make sure to leave a sub.
And a sub. Jacob says a sub. Anything else, Jacob?
Nah.
All right. Deuces.